I want to
absolutely.
do.
Wait, there's no way out of here. Ah. Oh, there's definitely a way out. Oh, heck yeah. Hello everybody, I'm Beyond Rogue. Welcome back to another video. Today I'm back in the world of MineZ and I'm doing something a little different. So some of you might know it's something I've been vocal about in the past couple years, but perhaps my favorite build in all of MineZ is the Hall of Shadows. I mean, I like Shrine of the Dusk overall, but really that room specifically is just one of my favorites. It's always interested me, the level of mystery that surrounds it. And today I figured I would do a video where I focus exclusively on the Hall of Shadows and where I go ahead and parkour up every single tower in the room. So for those of you who are familiar with the dungeon, there are 4 towers in the Hall of Shadows you do have to parkour up, which I have on this map here, because each one gives you a ceiling skull that you then need to open up the boss room, essentially. And so everyone knows those towers. I'm not going to go over them in extensive detail. I've got some footage of them going up on the screen right now, but I'm going to parkour up all of the other towers, the ones you're not supposed to go up, and see what's inside of them. So I already did this, and it was kind of dangerous and kind of stressful. So instead of showing you guys the raw footage with my raw and frankly profane commentary, I decided I would voice over it and make it a little bit more cleaner and polished for you guys. So that being said, we're going to go ahead and start with the first tower. I'm going to kind of go in like a snake formation. So we're going to start in the bottom right corner with... Alright, so something important I should probably mention before I start this tower. A lot of the mystique around this room involves the seal at the beginning. So when I say ceiling tower, you might think ceiling as in S-E-A-L. I actually mean ceiling as in C-E-I-L, I guess. The roof of the room, as it were. Because this parkour actually does take you essentially into the ceiling of the Hall of Shadows, which is probably my favorite part about this tower specifically, is just that it takes you to a place that none of the other towers do, and I find that pretty cool. So this parkour overall isn't too tricky. It's one of the few towers that actually, as you parkour around the wall here, like this one right here, these jumps do. And that jump right there, the one I just did, a little corner there, is one of the sketchier jumps in the entire room here, just because you're high up, and you're on a corner, and you're like off of the main parkour path, so it's a little sketchy, but it's fun. Honestly, there are some towers in this room that are really difficult in terms of parkour, and we'll get to them later. This one honestly isn't one of them. And again, if you're going to do this, I'd recommend having feather falling 4s, obviously, just because you're that high off the ground that if you make a mistake, you want to have them. But this tower, odds are, you can do pretty easily without failing, just because there aren't many difficult jumps. And most of the ones that aren't too high off the ground, so they're pretty forgiving. Generally, I wouldn't sweat them too much. But here, that jump, as you might see, is actually a little sketchy, so I had second thoughts for a minute there. But finally decided to just go for it, because you do have to jump on the stair there. It's not fun. It's sketchy. You can die if you miss, but I didn't, luckily, I suppose. So, yeah, the last couple jumps here are no fun. But once you get to the top, again, this is probably one of my favorite towers. Like, if I were ranking all of them, this one would be up there. So once you're in the ceiling area here, you get a pretty high tier chest. And then if I go back real quick, you'll see that there is a dispenser with a button in there. You don't want to push that, because if you don't know, hitting the wrong dispensers in this room will either spawn pigmen or damage potions, and you really don't want either of those happening in that tight of a space, because if you're not ready for it, it can end your run early. So yeah, that's about it for this tower. Most of the towers, the way down is essentially to just drop down without taking as much damage as you can, basically. Some of them you can parkour all the way down, but it's really time consuming, and frankly it might make more sense to just eat a little bit of fall damage once in a while just to get back down. So that's about it for the ceiling tower. Again, one of my favorites. And we're moving on to another one of my favorites, what I call the 3 a.m. tower. Alright, so the 3 a.m. tower is directly next to the ceiling tower. You'll see on the map I'm adjusting it as we go. So this tower has actually been in the game for a long time now. It's actually one of the ones that made me want to make this video, because basically, gonna give a shout out here to Fridge, one of the more popular MineZ YouTubers to ever grace the map. Basically, he did a live stream, this was years ago, where he went into Shrine of the Dusk right when they changed up the towers. Because they used to have different towers that gave ceiling skulls, and so he had to go up a bunch of different towers to try to find the right ones, basically. And this was one of the ones that he went up, and just the fact that it was wrong, but it showed something really cool, kind of inspired me to do this video way back when. So once you get to the top of this parkour, it's not too hard. You get a high tier dungeon chest and a lore block that says, "Oh boy, 3 a.m." Hence why it's called the 3 a.m. Tower. For those of you who don't know, there's a popular SpongeBob episode called The Graveyard Shift, in which Squidward utters the line, "Who would order a Krabby Patty at 3 in the morning?" And then it cuts to Patrick, whose alarm clock goes off, and he says, "Oh boy, 3 a.m." And then he proceeds to eat a Krabby Patty. It's a pretty brilliant line, and the fact that it's in Shrine of the Dusk is pretty awesome, if not a light-hearted little addition in one of the scarier dungeons in the game. So that's about it for the 3 a.m. tower. Moving on to the next one. I believe the next one we have is the fall damage puzzle tower. Alright, so the fall damage puzzle tower is in the corner of the map. As you can tell, I updated it as we went. You'll notice that I actually skipped the tower in between 3 a.m. tower and fall damage puzzle tower, and that's because that is the corner jump tower, as I'm calling it, which is one of the towers that you actually have to complete in order to make it to the boss room. So everybody knows that tower, everybody does that tower. I briefly touched on it at the beginning of the video, but again, for this one I really do want to focus on the towers you don't have to do and that people generally don't do. So you'll notice about 5-10 seconds ago there I did a kind of sketchy corner jump. This is the first tower that I've covered that I would honestly say has parkour that's like more difficult than the main towers. So there's a handful of them that generally it's definitely not worth the risk to do. Some of them are even riskier that I'll get into later in the video. I still can't believe I actually made it to the top of. But yeah, so this one has a couple of sketchy jumps like that corner one. They get a little worse as you go, but generally they're not too bad, I guess. So we're almost at the top here now. Generally you can tell you're getting close. Oh, I didn't realize I failed that. So generally you can tell you're getting close when you start to see the bedrock that lines up with the wall there with the fire, because that is pretty close to the ceiling, and therefore the tops of these towers are generally going to be about in line with that. So that's cool. So you go around this corner, there's that jump, and then the rest of them are pretty easy from what I remember. Obviously I'm voiceovering this a couple days after I actually recorded it. But yeah, once you're at the top, you're basically good to go. And then when you get in, the reason it's called the fall damage puzzle tower is because you have a little bit of a drop down thing here. And when I did this, I didn't actually know if there was a way to get out of the tower once you drop to the bottom. I kind of took a gamble on that. And this was an actual Shrine of the Dusk run. So basically, I didn't really tell my group that I was risking that run. But that's what I was doing. And so there's a bunch of skulls down here, nothing really special, but if you push that button, you actually get teleported back into the middle of the Hall of Shadows, and there's my man Tygel there, cheering me on as I get teleported out. So that's about it for that tower. Next one we have for snaking around is going to be what I actually call the Disappointment Tower. So we'll get to that one, and you guys will see why I call it that in a second here. Okay, Disappointment Tower. So basically, as the name would suggest, this tower is a bit of a disappointment, you know? I'm sure y'all could kind of gather that that's why it's called that. So it starts off with this one jump that's like a really tricky corner jump, and you kind of have to momentum it. I'm sure you can do it without, but it's really difficult if you don't. So it took me a little while to get the hang of that. But there's a couple of tricky jumps like that just throughout this tower that make it considerably more difficult than the ones past. Definitely harder than, say, the 3 a.m. tower or the ceiling tower per se. But It's kind of a fun challenge, but it'll frustrate you. You definitely want feather fallings for this one and a lone sword for sure. And this tower actually is relevant in getting to the top of one of the other towers. We'll get into that towards the end of the video, actually. But yeah, so you do all of this really difficult parkour. You've got another corner jump here. That you have to do. It's kind of the same as the one before it, but higher up, obviously, so if you make a mistake, you really don't want to. Um, but yeah, so you do all of this hard parkour, and once you get to the top, there's really not much of anything. There's one dungeon chest, and it's kind of just like an empty room that's not unlike the rest of the towers, really. I mean, there's just nothing that stands out about this one. There's no fall damage puzzle, there's no lore block, there's just none of that, and so it's kind of boring, and it makes you wonder why he went through the arduous task of climbing up this tower in the first place. But you know, it is what it is. So that's about it for the Disappointment Tower, as I call it. The next tower we're going to move on to is actually the Old Lava Tower. So those of you who have done Shrine in the past, way in the past specifically, will probably know about this tower, but we still have to do it because it's not a tower you have to do anymore. So that'll be the next one we do. Alright, so the next tower is the Old Lava Tower. This is arguably the easiest parkour out of all of the parkour challenges there are. It always kind of has been that way. Generally, when we used to divvy out responsibilities when you had to do this tower, this was the one that the weakest link of the group would generally end up doing, just because it doesn't have many hard jumps, and even if you fail, most of them are pretty forgiving. So again, we skipped the tower between Disappointment and this one because it's the Pigman Tower. Y'all know it. Y'all hate it. It is what it is. If it didn't have a water refill, nobody would do it. So yeah, basically Lava Tower. It's pretty straightforward. You just parkour up kind of like every other one. There aren't many gimmicky jumps. I think there's a couple head hitters here and there. I know I said it was the easiest one and y'all just saw me fail it. Is what it is. But once you get up here, there really isn't much of anything around here. So when you get inside, you'll see it's kind of just an empty room. There used to be a pressure plate you would stand on that would drop a skull, and those dispensers there would rain lava from the sky, so you had to get out of there as soon as possible. But that has since been removed. Obviously, the dispensers and the dropper are still there as evidence that that used to be a thing. But now, really, it's just an empty room, and if you parkour up here, you get nothing but a fond memory, I guess. So, yeah. Alright, so the next tower, you'll see here I actually got chased to, but the next tower is the what I call the Spiral Tower. And you'll see why when we get to the top. There's a little gimmick that involves a bit of a spirally thing. But basically this one, you parkour up. Recently, I actually did this tower mistakenly because I thought that it was a tower you had to do. I mixed it up with the Potion Tower right next door. It's the one that's one over if you're looking towards the seal there. But so I accidentally did this tower already. So this one was not much of a discovery for me. It was something I'd already done. But there's some hard jumps on this one, and they're towards the top of the tower. So if you fail them, odds are if you don't have feather fallings or gold apple hearts or anything like that, you'll probably die. So you need to be really careful when you're doing this tower. But the way up is generally straightforward. It's not much harder than any of the other towers, besides, again, a couple of jumps right around here that do get a little sketchy. But yeah, so obviously we're kind of winding down here because we only have a handful of other towers that haven't been done yet that are not mandatory. For those of you who are wondering, this was the particularly sketchy jump I was talking about. It's a head hitter where if you hit your head, you're dropping down. So gotta try not to do that. In fact, just to give myself a little bit of an out there, I killed that pigman before doing the parkour just because I didn't want to take all that damage and then also die to a pigman. So anyway, you continue the parkour, And when you get inside, there is a neat little spiral staircase sort of deal. It's kind of unique. I mean, it's, another one of those gimmicky towers, I guess. Gives you something to look at when you come in, which is nice. But yeah, so you go all the way down, and there's a chest at the top, obviously. You guys probably already saw that. But when you go down, there's like little gaps in the stairs. You can't actually fall through. I guess kind of unfortunately. I'd want to make it to the bottom of this tower, just see if there's like anything cool at the bottom. But it's blocked off. There's no way to make it any further than the point that y'all saw. So once you get down there, might as well just climb back up. You've seen all there is to see, really. And then again, parkouring down, just kind of go the way you came. Occasionally take a little bit of fall damage if you don't want to do all of the jumps backwards. So yeah, that's about it for the spiral tower. The next tower we have, I believe, is going to be the Hell Tower. So that one's actually probably my favorite tower out of all of them in the entire hall. So I'm excited for that one, and I'll see you guys at that one. Alright, so we are coming up towards the end here. This is the second to last tower we're going to do in this video. And y'all remember how I said that Disappointment Tower is going to come back into play here? Well, here's how. Basically, you can't actually parkour from the ground up on this tower. So what you have to do is you have to do some of the Disappointment Tower parkour, including this difficult corner jump that I just hate. And you have to make it up to a certain height, and then you have to drop down onto the what I call the Hell Tower. So basically, you're going to see what I do here. You do these jumps, and then you make it onto the wall here. You're going to have to kill that zombie if it's there, obviously, because you don't want to get hit off and die at this point. We've explored just about every tower now. But from there, you're going to have to do a little bit of shenanigans to make it to this tower. But with this jump, if you momentum it, you'll land here. You really don't have to. As long as you're on the area that I'm on now, you can do this parkour. And again, there's just no parkour from the ground, so that's what you have to do, unfortunately. But it does create a neat little challenge, so I do kind of like that, not gonna lie. And even once you get up here, it looks like this parkour is impossible. For a second, I thought it was, and I gave up on this. But if you keep at it, you'll realize that there actually is a way up, and pretty soon here I'll decide to go around and actually find another way, because it's what you have to do, basically. Yeah, there we go. So once you get over here, you can just momentum that jump, and you're on the main path, which is nice. This is probably the hardest tower, if I'm being totally honest with you, between having to do another tower to get to it, having that momentum jump that you guys probably just saw on the screen, and then also just having to like actually find a way up, because there's so much of it that looks like there's not a feasible path up. Again, we have another one of these corner jumps that I just love having to momentum. That's my favorite part of my job, makes it all worthwhile. But yeah, man, I really struggled on this one, not gonna lie. This jump, luckily it's a forgiving one because it got me a couple times. But once you get from there, it's not too bad, I guess. Like, I didn't struggle with it too bad, I suppose. But yeah, again, just getting to this point is tough enough, much less having to do a bunch of more stressful jumps. When you're at about the height of Dentral's Claw there, you can see for a comparison. So if you fall from there, your run is probably over, if I do have to say so myself. So there's only a couple of jumps left here. I think the opening is right around this corner, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so you have a couple jumps where you have to like climb up, and then you're in. And again, this is called the Hell Tower because it's Nether themed. You gotta love it, right? There's a little bit of, I guess, a drop-down puzzle. It's not really much of one because there's water in here. It's actually another water refill if you are doing the Hall of Shadows. It's not as sensible to go here as it would be to go to Pigman Tower, but you know, if you're exploring and you need water, like, you can always do that. Unfortunately, you really can't hold the door open for people because then everyone else, to get to that point, you'll notice the door is a little bit raised, and if it's raised like that, everyone else is going to have to basically parkour to that point. So yeah, that's about it for the Hell Tower. There's obviously one more tower left to do, so we'll get right into that one. And I don't want to leave y'all in suspense. Let's get right into it. Alright, so this is actually the final tower I guess we're going to do in this video. It's kind of shame. I really had a lot of fun making this one, guys. But this tower, it's the last one. I kind of just call it the fall damage tower. Which I guess is kind of confusing, so you could construe it with the fall damage puzzle tower. I also wanted to call it the lava tower because there's actually some lava involved, but I didn't want to mix it up with the old lava tower either. So I guess you could call it the lava fall tower or something. I don't know. These names are all very unofficial and not significant in any meaningful way. They're just ways that I remember all of the towers, and since I'm making the video, I figured I'd go with my names, right? So basically this tower, I don't remember it being particularly difficult, but a fun fact about this tower is that this is the tower that actually inspired this video, and it actually inspired this video about 4 years ago now. So back when I was doing Legacy, we would actually do small shrine runs with about 2 or 3 people, because back then it was really feasible to do those runs just if you were an average player. And back then, we kind of explored the Hall of Shadows a little bit. We never fleshed it out quite like I did in this video where I went to every single tower. But I went to most of them, and this was one of the towers that I went to that really inspired me. And when I made it to the top, I actually chickened out. And you guys will see why when I get to the top here. It wasn't this jump that made me chicken out. This jump's kind of tricky. And if you fail it, don't feel too bad because it's a toughie. But there's actually something inside the tower that is particularly sketchy that if you're not committed to exploring, you really don't want to do. And that is this drop here that goes into a 1x1 water source. So there's a chest up at the top of the tower, and then again, if you want to make it to the bottom, you got to drop down into the water, which is really dangerous because it's a pretty high fall, and if you take damage, you're not wearing feather fallings, you're dead. You guys saw I took almost 7 hearts, and that was just from having feather fallings on. So if you don't, you can finish the puzzle, you're probably not making it out. So this can look really bad. It looks like you're kind of trapped at the bottom here, but you're not. Basically, if you follow the, I guess it's black concrete. It used to be coal back in the day. But if you follow the black concrete down here, there's actually a way that leads you down to the bottom with a pressure plate that opens up the exit, which once again brings you to the main Hall of Shadows, which is just awesome. I love that exit so much. So that's the last tower for this video. I guess that technically covers the entire Hall of Shadows. Again, if you watched up till this point, thank you so much for watching. This video is a labor of love. I've loved this build for years and years and years now, and to finally have a video up where I explore all of this stuff is just really darn cool for me. So if you also enjoyed it, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. And once again, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.